victims of oppression, for the tyrants fear your might. Don't cling so hard to your possessions, for you have nothing if you have no rights. Let racist ignorance be ended, for respect makes the empires fall. Freedom is merely privilege extended, unless enjoyed by one and all. So my brothers and sisters, while the struggle carries on, the Internationale unites the world in song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The International ideal unites the human race.
Hello and welcome back to Bookish. Today I'm doing a tag because it's Tag Tuesday, and I'm finally going to do the Boujee BookTuber Tag. This tag was created by Olive over at a Book Olive, and what a great tag it is. And I've been watching everybody have a really fun time doing this tag. I'll leave a link to her original video down below. I was tagged by Gregg. It's supposedly fun. I'll leave a link to his video below as well. Thank you, Gregg. And just recently I was tagged by Dane from Dane Reads. Thank you, Dane, for the tag. I'll leave a link to his version of this tag down below. So I was really thinking about whether or not I wanted to do this tag, because I realized the tag is intended to be kind of all in fun, but at the same time provoke some discussion about book buying and materialism perhaps. But for me it was a little bit more painful, I think, because you know, college me and me today probably look at my life and my ideas about money and buying things very differently. In college I was a left-leaning fellow in an extreme. I'm still a left-leaning fellow today, but nowhere near as extreme as I was back then. I was briefly a member of a group on my college campus, a leftist group on my college campus called Axel, a group which I narrowly escaped being an officer of, and if you ask me I'll tell you the story of how that almost happened. And if you'd asked me, you know, young me, what I grew up to be, Boujee, I would have said, no, I will remain a champion of the working man and the everyday and the simple things. And well, here I am, a middle class teacher, comfortably ensconced in a slightly upper middle class life, in a upper middle class neighborhood, in a upper middle class home, surrounded by, you know, possessions, which I think firmly qualifies me as a member of the bourgeoisie. Not to brag at all. It's, you know, one of those things that happens to you, I guess. As you get slightly older, you start acquiring more things, and you start wanting more stability, and you start wanting more comfort. And so in some ways, this tag reminded me of things I used to think as compared to things I think today in terms of materialism, etc. I'm not trying to judge anybody else, and I'm certainly not trying to put myself above anybody else. It's just that for me this tag kind of brought up a lot of interesting questions. Anyway, so to get to the prompts of the tag, prompt number 1 is the average monthly budget for books. So I don't really have an average monthly budget for books, which is the most bougie thing I think I'm going to say this entire time. I'm in a position where if I want a book, I just buy the book, which, like I said, is pretty bougie. So to keep track, on prompt number 1, my answer is bougie. Prompt number 2, most you ever spent on books? Well, if this includes college textbooks for my kids, then that amount would be nearly $500 for one kid, and if I add the two together, it would be close to $800 when, or $800 or $900 when we get the total cost of textbooks in. But I don't think that's what this meant. I think it means, you know, how much money have you ever spent at a bookstore? And I think that in a physical bookstore, even at Amazon, the most I've ever spent on myself at a time is about $100 to $120. Usually that happens in physical bookstores when I get a gift card around Christmas or for my birthday. I usually just go and immediately spend the entire value of the card, which is, you know, gift cards, bookstores, $100 for books. It's pretty bougie. So now 2 of my answers have been strictly speaking bougie. Question number 3 is, are you willing to pay full price for a new release, or will you wait till it's cheaper or it comes out in paperback? And the answer is yes, I'm willing to pay full price for a new release if I really want the book. If it's a book by an author and I really want to read it, Like, for instance, Colson Whitehead's The Nickel Boys. I believe I paid full price for that book. I also paid full price for Valeria Luiselli's The Lost Children Archive, which I plan on reading in December or January. I do like it when I can get to an independent bookstore to pay full price for a book. I don't know why, and I'm not sure if that's bougie or prolo. Is that a proletariat thing to buy from an independent bookstore? Or is it a bougie thing to think you're doing something good by buying from an independent bookstore? I'm going to leave that one kind of up in the air. Prompt number 4 is, would you rather buy one new book or several used books? And so the quantity is always to me more important than the newness of the book. I read a lot more backlists than I read new releases, so to me this is easy. I'd much rather buy a number of used books instead of one new book, and so I'm going to give myself credit for a proletariat answer there. Question number 5, let's see. What do you think the price of a new book should be, or recommended price for a new book should be? I have a feeling my recommendations and my ideas for prices are pretty much online with kind of where the price of these books fall, but I would just say that for a new hardback, $25, in the neighborhood of $25, for a new paperback in the neighborhood of $15, and for a new ebook in the neighborhood of $10. I do think those prices should decline, particularly for ebooks after the big book's been out for a while. And once we go to a mass market paperback and not a trade paperback, then the price should go down even further. But I have a feeling that's a pretty bougie answer. In part, I think that that's my answer because, as many people have said during this tag, publishers have to make a profit. You know, the writers that we love, the books that we love to read, will not be published if publishers can't be profitable. And while it's, you know, tempting to think of them price gouging to make a lot of money by jacking up the cost of their hardback books or their ebooks for books they know they're going to be popular, you know, one way I look at that is that that cost or that price also pays for the mid-list novelist and the new novelist to get their books published, because, you know, the profit the publisher makes from a Stephen King book go to help that publisher publish new works, new authors, mid-list authors, authors that they just believe in who may not have brought them a tremendous amount of commercial success. And so I think those prices are pretty fair. Plus, you know, the higher the price on the cover of the book, the more money the author makes, and to me the author is always in my mind when I'm buying a book or thinking about price. Prompt number 6 is a signed book or a first edition worth more to me? The answer to both of those is no, so I'm going to give myself full credit for a proletariat answer to both of those. Prompt number 7 is, what is your most valuable book, either monetarily or sentimentally? Well, for me that answer is the same, both. This is the first edition of Love in the Time of Cholera. I know I just said first editions didn't matter to me, and they don't. It's just that when my girlfriend, who's now my wife, bought me this book in college, she just happened to buy a first edition, and she signed it and put a nice message in there for me on our 3-year dating anniversary. The first edition came with this really cool artwork postcard, which I've kept in the book. And, you know, just because of this tag, I looked up online to see kind of what the value of that book was, first edition with the postcard and the dust jacket intact, and I believe it's around $100. But sentimentally, it's worth way more to me than that, because my girlfriend, who I later married, gave me the book. So I'm going to give myself credit for another proletariat answer there, which I think that means I'm at 4-3. Prompt number 8 is, will you pay more for a cover design of a book that you like? And the answer to that is no. That doesn't matter to me at all. I don't care. If it's a book that I want and I can find it used with an old cover design, I'm fine. If you look behind me at my books, you can see there's no attempt at buying the same edition or even grouping the same publishers' books together or the same kinds of editions. That's just not something that matters to me, so I'm going to give myself credit for yet another prolo answer. So I think I'm at 4-3. I might be at 4-4. Have to go back and check more carefully. Prompt number 9 is, what physical characteristics make up a good book? Well, if you heard me talk about my Elizabeth I biography, one of the things I've complained about, the only thing I've complained about from that book, is how small the print is. So I'm going to say that one of the physical characteristics for me that makes up a good book is print that's big enough for me to see. That doesn't actually have to be large print, even though large print does feel quite luxurious. But the tiny print, which you find in a lot of, like in the old Penguin Classic size, which I'll be reading some of for Victober, can be a strain on my old poor vision eyes. I like the book to feel solid. I like for it to be comfortable, comfortable book to hold in one hand or in two, and no deckled edges. I'm not a big fan of deckled edges, even though my Garcia Marquez has deckled edges. It just makes it hard to turn the page. I think somebody else said that. Maybe it was Mark Nash. I don't know why I want a book where it makes it more difficult for me to turn the individual page. So I'm going to give myself credit for a proletariat answer there, because I didn't say, you know, big, fancy, embossed anything. So I'm going to call that a proletariat answer and give myself credit for one more of those. Oh, prompt number 10 is, what bookish thing would you do if you won the lottery? Well, and like I think everybody else has said, if I won like a really big lottery, like, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars, a lottery, one thing I'd like to do is just go book shopping around the world. Just travel to Europe and Asian and Australian and New Zealand bookstores. Just go to whatever the great bookstores are in those places, here in the United States too, and just to go book shopping and visit those cities and those bookstores. But the other thing I thought I would do is I would like to endow a university press at my alma mater, where I got my undergraduate degree, which is Stephen F. Austin State University. I would like to endow the creation of a university press there, and hopefully that would lead to the creation of a degree in publishing or in that kind of technology there, as well as encourage and publish writers from my area of the world and young writers. And anyway, I would just think that would be something that I would really like to do if I won enough money. So I think that's pretty bougie, wanting to establish a university press, and if that's not, wanting to travel the world to go book shopping is definitely a bougie thing to do. So I'd have to call that a bougie answer. And then the extra prompt was, what is your fantasy library? Well, my fantasy library is actually this room. I was lucky enough when we moved to this house that there is a room that's classified as a study, which means I live in a bougie house, and my wife was nice enough to let me have this room for my own uses, which means I have a room of my own where I can write or I can read, and where I have these bougie bookshelves, which I got from IKEA. And I have my books displayed, which is probably pretty bougie because there are lots of them. But if I could do one thing, I would change this room in two ways. One, I would have more bookshelves. And two, in that corner right there, I've always dreamed about putting in a spiral staircase in that corner and then building a room in the attic space right above this room that I could use for a writing and a reading room. So this book would just be a library, and that would be a writing or reading book. And I think that answer right there firmly tips the scales in favor of saying that I'm bougie. Well, there are worse things. Anyway, let me know what you thought of let me know what you think of my answers in the comments section below, and as always, thank you for watching.